Hey, and welcome back to Viva Talks. Today we put the spotlight on venues, and we got Beverley Whitrick from Music Venue Trust in the UK, working with the protection of grassroots venues, and James Young, venue owner and booker in Australia. And we'll find out how they cope with the current situation, how they work, and possible ways forward. Without further ado, just maybe a quick round and present yourself, who you are and what you do. So Beverley, please.
Okay. Hi, my name is Beverley Whitrick. I am the Strategic Director of Music Venue Trust, which is a registered charity whose mission is to protect, secure and improve the grassroots music venues of the UK. So we were founded in 2014 and have been working on a lot of lobbying, campaigning, bringing venues together to share resources, best practice, try and work with the music industry, the cultural industries, all of that. We currently have, I think it's 797 venues in our network across Scotland, Wales, Northern Ireland and England. So we deal with a lot of venues. Obviously, we've had a lot that have joined us recently, but we're still quite a small organisation with a really big mission.
All right. And James.
Yes, welcome. My name's James Young from Melbourne, Australia. And in Melbourne, I own and book 3 live music venues. Cherry Bar, which is in the city, has about a 250 capacity. Yaya's in a suburb called Fitzroy, which has also got a 250 capacity. And actually, just finished renovating a hotel in Footscray, which is in the western suburbs, which has a capacity of 550. We were due to open on the 4th of April. You know, we'd done our $800,000 renovation and couldn't open. So that's just sitting there as a shiny diamond that no bands or no people can get into yet, which is frustrating. I also book another venue called the Yarraville Club, both music and comedy, and run a couple of small music festivals.
Is it as bad as it seems? Like, is everything closed regarding the live music scene now? What's the current status of the work?
We were the first to be closed in the middle of March, and we'll be the last to be opened because the chief health officer and the government consider live music venues to be a very low priority, and perhaps they consider us to be a risk in terms of potential spread of the virus, and which is unfair because you've got a situation where public transport and schools and of course casinos and hardware stores and of course shopping centres and even food courts are all wide open, but live music venues are yet to be given the nod. But on June 22, we're going to be allowed 50 patrons, and at that point, I'll certainly be opening Cherry Bar with a totally different model. So I think it's going to be interesting that you're going to come and see. You might come and see a band like Amyl and the Sniffers, like a popular punk band here, and you'll be sitting at a table and you're not allowed to dance or get up. And if you go to the bathroom, it's a 1 in, 1 out rule, and you still got to respect quite strict social distancing rules.
Is this something that you could relate to, Beverley?
Yeah, no, there's a huge number of similarities. Venues, well, we had one really hellish week in March where on the Monday evening, the Prime Minister told people not to go out, but it took him until the weekend to actually tell anything in the nightlife sector that they should close, which, you know, it is the worst of all worlds, because at that point you are responsible for full costs. You have to staff, you have to open in case people come. But obviously artists were cancelling and punters weren't coming. So we had one venue that had a completely sold out show and not a single ticket holder turned up. At the moment, all venues are closed. The dates being discussed for potential for grassroots music venues are the 4th of July. However, the exercise that we're engaged in at the moment is trying to work out the 4 square meters. Every person must have 2 meters around them in all directions, which is reducing capacities of venues to 16 people, and that includes the staff and the artists. Certainly in some European countries, they're saying music can come back, but no refreshments can be sold. So it's not seated because they're going to, do table service or anything. They're actually just saying, I think it's at the moment Spain and Italy, they're saying, yeah, you can have people in and they can seat, but they can't buy any drinks, which of course makes the whole economics so much more impossible to work out. And is really, I think it's a reflection on the World Health Organization pushing this week now the message that music is a cultural activity, it's a social activity as well, and these are important for the mental health and well-being of people.
Yes.
But you can't separate our sector, you can't separate those positive things from the economics of it, because the bits we work in, they're not subsidized. It's not high art, it's not state subsidized activity. And therefore, there is an economic side to it. And that's what's really challenging in the current stage in the UK. We're being asked to talk about what can be done apart from the potential cost of it. And of course, what we're trying to say is our venues are independent businesses. And if they can't meet the safety guidance, they won't be able to open. But at that point, the only way they will survive is if there's some sort of government subsidy to acknowledge that they can't open.
And how would you say, like, I know that both of you are running campaigns right now we have Save Our Venues and Save Our Scene. Start with you, James, like with Save Our Scene, how's it going? And has there been any results?
Yeah, well, our campaign's very fresh. One of our sort of goals was, I suppose we've got a huge bunch of musicians, venue owners and punters who are waiting to be mobilised. They're saying, how can we help? So we had to work out how they can help. And really it is to help us convince the government to not let down the sector. And the government in Victoria will normally pay good attention to a petition that can get 3,000 signatures. Now, we launched on Monday, and this morning we already had 10,000. And pleasingly, I know the government has already brought our peak body, Music Victoria, back to the table. Initially, Music Victoria had gone to the state government and said, we want a $50 million rescue package for the Victorian live music scene. And the first time that got put before the government, it was just dismissed and not looked at. So now the purpose of the campaign is, you dismissed our plea for help. We need you to relook at it. And to me, it makes a lot of financial sense, because you're protecting a sector that's worth $1.4 billion, and that's annually. So now we've got, there's a lot of interviews going on, there's a lot of street posters, and we're getting very good momentum. It's good timing that we're having this chat now, in fact. So that's purpose of the campaign, and that's where we are. And where do I think it'll end up? I think the government will end up giving us, a quarter of what we asked for. That's how I think it'll end, and that'll be helpful. But for me, it's in two parts. Sorry, firstly is the rescue plan, and the second part is to be more mindful of these businesses in terms of when they can open and how they can open.
All right. And how about you guys, Beverley? Are you working in a similar way, or your campaign Save Our Venues, is it completely different?
We're doing a lot of the same work. We're not doing it in the same way. And I think that's probably because Music Venue Trust was already kind of established as a lobbying body, and we're part of a number of music industry working groups. But like in Australia, the government doesn't really understand the music industry. And, we get crazy statements like, oh, well, culture can't open till next year. And you're like, well, culture is a many and varied thing. And maybe the West End theatres or international touring can't open till next year. But culture happens on a local, regional, national, international level. So why shouldn't local culture, which is exactly what small music venues do really well, why should that not open sooner? Because you're not talking about mass travel or any of these more dangerous things. So that's kind of discussions that are going on, and we're actually lucky enough to have fought our way into some of the working groups. And so we do have an opportunity to talk to government, although it's incredibly competitive. Our campaign, Save Our Venues, is a bit older. We launched it on the 27th of April, and it's raised nearly £2 million. And where it's really similar is it was actually a response to artists and members of the public coming towards us and saying, what can we do to help these music venues? And particularly artists who hate not playing. What actually happened, first of all, is Frank Turner, who's one of our patrons, and I think known pretty much all over the place because he tours endlessly. Frank started doing gigs once a week for a specific venue that he loved and raising £10,000 to £20,000 a time for that venue to try and secure those venues one at a time with their day-to-day costs. Save Our Venues is about artists doing activity to raise money from the public to help individual venues, or the central pot, which is Music Venue Trust, helping all the venues. And actually one of the things it's enabled us to do is create a much bigger team. So at the start of this crisis in March, I had 3 staff. I've now got 17 because we've put in coordinators across the UK whose job it is to talk with every venue in our network and make sure that they're applying for anything they're entitled to under the government guidance, that they've set up their crowdfunder, that they're, doing whatever they can on a very practical basis to survive as long as possible while we work on the actually how are they going to reopen and what support is there going to be.
Yeah.
If I can just comment on that, I think that's a very interesting idea about the artists. Fantastic initiative, and yes, what I found in the past, I remember I did had to do some soundproofing at Cherry Bar when it was in ACDC Lane, and you spend a year trying to get money from a white knight sponsor or from government or from the city of Melbourne. At the end of the day, you turn to the only people who don't have money and will give it to you, which is the public. And you do a crowdfunding campaign, and then you've got $100,000 in 24 hours, and in return for the name on the wall or whatever. But it's amazing that's how it works. One of the brave things I've had to do is invite the government into my venue starting on June 22. And I'm a bit nervous about that because I have to explain to them that that's how the Cherry toilets always look. We are a dive bar. But to really make them come in and say, oh, they are adults and they will sit down. And when you explain to them on stage that this is a test for the Cherry Bar and for the live music sector, that you're confident that they will respond and they'll obey the rules during this moment in time.
I think on that, I couldn't agree more. And what we're actually trying to really emphasize here in the UK is it's not the music that's the dangerous bit. Don't keep us closed because we put music on, because live music in itself is not the dangerous activity. It's the massing of people. It's bringing people together. And that's a public health issue. So we're actually part of an international project called Reopen Every Venue Safely that says we're music professionals. You give us the public health guidance and we'll tell you how every venue can operate with those public health considerations.
Before all of this with Corona is over, is the way forward to be able to open the venues in a safe way and let the live music still live on? Is that the way forward, or is another way also necessary, like what you said, James? Maybe like the government needs to make some financial contributions as well.
I don't think waiting for a handout is the right approach. We really do want to reopen, and I think the point that we're discussing here is the live music sector is prepared to do more than any other sector to get open. We'll have the thermometer. We'll collect the information. We'll maintain social distancing. We'll have hygiene officers looking after So we're prepared to do all these things over and above what any other sector's doing. So just give us a chance to prove ourselves, and we will.
I think perhaps we're taking it a bit more cautiously than James, in that we have the will to do exactly that, but we just don't have the money to do it. And actually, the quickest ways to close our venues forever is to make them lose money on opening to show the goodwill and then be expected to carry on operating in that way. And again, I go back to, I mean, we see grassroots music venues as like the research and development part of the whole music industry, and the UK music industry is worth a lot of money. So we're trying to be really practical, but we're also trying to look at things and say, well, you've got to match the will with some sort of financial support, because at the best of times, grassroots music venues in the UK don't make a profit anyway. They're not. You don't open a grassroots music venue because you want to make money. You open it because you're really passionate about music and about helping artists develop and connect with audiences. And if you're lucky, you might get to pay yourself a living wage, but some of our venue owners don't even get to do that.
That's it for now. Thank you all, and don't forget to subscribe to our YouTube channel and follow us on social media. So see you next time.